Well, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Bible in a Year 2021. We're on day 177, and we're looking at 1 Kings 16 and 2 Chronicles 17. So we're going to go through a few kings here once again today, and we pick it up in 1 Kings chapter 16, verses 2 to 4. And we see here that the Baasha, who really was following in the same footsteps as Jeroboam, is receiving the same kind of judgment that Jeroboam received. And the Lord says to him, I raised you up from the dust and made you a leader over my people Israel, but you walked in Jeroboam's ways, making my people Israel sin, making me angry with their sins. So look, I'm about to set fire to Baasha and his household, and I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, Nebat's son. Dogs will eat any of Baasha's family who die in town. Birds will eat any who die in the country. So he was raised up to really deal with the sins, with the things that were going on in Israel, but he just followed in line with the culture of the time. And so then we find this in verses 8 to 10. This his son, in the 26th year of Judah's king Asa, Elah, Baasha's son, became king over Israel. He ruled in Tirzah for 2 years. Zimri, his officer who led half the chariots, plotted against him. Elah was at Tirzah, getting drunk at the house of Azar, who had charge over the palace at Tirzah. Zimri came, attacked, and killed Elah in the 27th year of Judah's king Asa. Zimri succeeded him as king. So, yeah, we're picking up on a theme here, right? It's hard to be a king in Israel, that's for sure. And this is a fulfillment of prophecy here. Of Zimri. So this king Zimri destroyed the entire house of Baasha in agreement with the Lord's word that had been spoken by the prophet Jehu to Baasha. So the Lord speaks it, and it comes about. It didn't come about in Baasha's lifetime, but it came to his family after. So we're finding here that there's absolutely no stability in the leadership in Israel whatsoever. Somebody comes in, they're there for a couple of years, bang, somebody who's stronger comes in and takes over. So we see here in verses 15 to 16, in the 27th year of Judah's king Asa, Zimri became king. He ruled in Tirzah for 7 days. Yep, 7 days. The army was camped at Gibbethon in Philistia. They heard the news. Zimri has plotted against the king and killed him. Right then, in the camp, the whole Israelite army made their general Omri king of Israel. That's going to be significant for a certain reason very soon here. We're going to see this. But leadership is decided by strength here in Israel. In Judah, it's according to family line. It's David's family line. But in Israel, it's a free-for-all. Whoever can get the strongest army together, whoever's the sneakiest, whoever can overpower the current king gets to be king. So we pick it up in verse 21 to 22. At this time, the people of Israel were split in two. One half of the people followed Tibni, Ginath's son, making him king. The other half followed Omri. Omri's side was stronger than those who followed Tibni, Ginath's son. So Tibni died. He just love the way they put that. So he died. Yeah. And Omri became king. So they don't go into much detail there about how he died, but you can imagine. So here we find with Omri, there's a tiny little bit of stability, at least longer than a few days and longer than a couple of years. But at the same time, it's the wrong kind of stability. So in verse 23, we read, in the 31st year of Judah's king Asa, Omri became king of Israel. He ruled for 12 years. 12 years. six of which were in Tirzah. And then in verse 25, Omri did evil in the Lord's eyes, more evil than anyone who preceded him. Now that's going to be important because he's raising a certain son. And that son is going to be very significant. So regardless of what Omri did or didn't do in his lifetime, it's what he raised his son to do. And that's what we read here. So in the 38th year of Judah's king Asa, so there's stability for you, already up to 38 years with Asa, Ahab. Now, that should ring a bell. Ahab, Omri's son, became king of Israel. He ruled over Israel and Samaria for 22 years and did evil in the Lord's eyes, more than anyone who preceded him. Ahab found it easy to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, Nebat's son. He found it easy because it was like kindergarten stuff for him. These two golden calves, that was nothing compared to everything else this king brought into Israel. He married Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, who was the king of the Sidonians. He served and worshipped Baal. Yeah. So the state god is the golden calves. They didn't even receive names. But here we find Ahab actually worships Baal. It's really significant. And you'll recognize him because we're going to come across it, but he was the enemy of one of the prophets that you'll recognize when we come across. So then let's switch over to Chronicles, where we'll follow the Israelite kings here in 2 Chronicles 17, verses 1 to 4. Asa's son, Asa, remember Asa started off well, he didn't end well. So we have Asa's son, Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat succeeded him as king. Jehoshaphat strengthened his position against Israel by stationing troops in the fortified cities of Judah and placing soldiers throughout the land of Judah and in the cities of Ephraim that his father Asa had captured. Now, that was easy for him to do. He had time to do that because Israel had no stability in leadership. So he took advantage of that and he fortified the cities that bordered on Israel there. The Lord was with Jehoshaphat because he followed. Look at that. The Lord was with Jehoshaphat because he followed the earlier ways of his father by not seeking Baal. Instead, he sought the God of his father, and unlike Israel, he followed God's commandments. How do you be a good king? Follow what the Lord has instructed you to do, right? That's what he said success is, and he said that to every king, follow me, follow my commandments, and it'll go well for you. And that's what Jehoshaphat did, and it went well for him. If we see here in verse 10 to 11, all the kingdoms surrounding Judah were afraid of the Lord and didn't wage war against Jehoshaphat. So he had peace. It wasn't because of Jehoshaphat, but because of Yahweh's protection. Some of the Philistines brought a load of silver as tribute to Jehoshaphat. The Arabians also brought flocks to Jehoshaphat, 7,700 rams and 7,700 goats. That's quite a bit there. So they're paying tribute to this king in the small kingdom of Judah. Now, but I understand something. Jehoshaphat didn't find that his strength came from his army, but he had quite the army. In verses 12 to 13, we begin reading, as Jehoshaphat grew increasingly powerful, he built fortresses and storage cities in Judah and had many supplies in the cities of Judah. He also had an army of mighty warriors in Jerusalem. And it goes down through and it lists and it gives numbers. And when you add it all up, it's over 1 million. In this tiny little kingdom of Judah, which should have been insignificant, it was not insignificant because Yahweh was for them. He was with them. They were with him, and his blessings were able to flow. And here Jehoshaphat ended up with an army of over 1 million. That's just amazing when I consider the smallness of that kingdom. So yeah, we're going to pick it up again tomorrow, but let's leave it here for now, and just keep in mind the blessings that flow when we walk with the Lord, when we cooperate with him, and when we don't do things the way we want to do them, not the way we think is best, but the way we have been instructed, because he's our creator and he knows more than we do. So you guys be blessed, be encouraged today, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.